Hi, everyone. This is Erfan Kimiaei, a last-year doctoral candidate at Aalto University. My background is spanning from valorization of the lignocellulosic materials for different applications, like emulsions, foams, coating, and especially barrier packaging. Moreover, I've been working on understanding the end life of materials by biodegradation analysis and sustainability assessment of material production by life cycle assessment. Well, did you know that every year more than 12 million tons of plastics ending up in ocean? This is threatening our environment, the life of the marine animals, and finally, our food chain. This issue even gets more critical, where we are in the areas that the recycling facilities are limited. So if we have a look at the share of the plastic waste, we see that packaging is one of the largest contributors. Even if sometimes we nicely collect them, their recyclability may be still challenging. Because, for instance, a typical food barrier packaging contains many layers, and each of them has a different materials. So this could be a challenge for their further separation. So we need an alternative that is safe for our environment, but also at the same time providing comparative performance to the plastic. Well, to achieve this, we need to have a smart combination of solutions. For instance, we can make the monoplastic better, like converting them in a recyclable or compostable materials, or even sometimes by reducing only a few grams of materials, we can make a huge difference and we can have less plastics. Or even much better, if we can have a fully zero plastic, for instance, we can have a fully paper-based substrate that may also include the bio-based barrier coating. And right now, I'm gonna give you one example about our recent research in order to develop multifunctional paper-based materials. Well, cellulosic materials coming from the cell wall of the plants have emerged as attractive replacement for traditional plastics due to their renewability, their biodegradability, and also their excellent mechanical property. However, their high tendency to absorb water and moisture can be challenging in certain applications. For instance, they are incompatible for blending with many polymers that they are hydrophobic. And this can be a challenge for their further scaling up. One of the common ways to address this issue is the surface and chemical treatments. But sometimes they are involving a lot of chemicals, and we may also compromise the cellulose natural biodegradability. Well, now I will show you how by utilizing interfacial chemistry, we may somehow address this issue. In this study, we wanted to efficiently combine a certain type of cellulosic materials called cellulose nanofibrils with a biodegradable but hydrophobic polyester called polycaprolactone. And we came up with this idea that what if we keep the structure of cellulose as what it is, but instead we engineer their interface with this component by a third component that has affinity with both of them. So, inspired by the gluing role of the lignin, we introduced the lignin nanoparticles as an interfacial compatibilizer between these two components. The idea is that we first stabilize the PCl droplets by lignin nanoparticles. It's like dispersion of the oil in water in emulsion. And after that, we may somehow disperse these droplets onto cellulose network structure. So now, let's see what's really happening where we have such a transition from a stable emulsion into homogeneous self-standing films. As I said, first, we have these PCl droplets stabilized by lignin nanoparticles, and then when we added cellulose there, these droplets became much more smaller if we compare the size scale here. And when we got rid of the excess water in system, we can make a self-standing film with a sign of polymer droplet, as you can see here. But lastly, at controlled temperature and pressure, these droplets could be melted mostly at the surface of cellulose network. And the result was ending up with a mostly cellulosic film, but it has hydrophobic characteristic. So now on, I will point out some of the key properties of these products. And from now on, when I say composite film, meaning that we have 70% cellulose weight fraction and 30% polycaprolactone and lignin. Well, one of the most impressive properties was the high wet strength of our sample, where we kept our sample for 2 days in water and then immediately checked their mechanical property in wet state. We could get up to 87 megapascal for these films, even we didn't have such a chemical modification, meaning that these films can still retain their strength, even when they are fully wet. And in the right figure, you can see the sign of water contact angle when we could get a hydrophobic characteristic for these films. So after that, we wanted to explore the potential application of these films that could be, for instance, useful for barrier. But before going through that, I would like to remind that when we talk about barrier requirement, we need to first clarify our target applications. Because sometimes, for instance, fresh bakery or fresh salad product doesn't need that much barrier, and the breathability would be more important. But sometimes, for instance, for instant coffee, we need very high level of barrier property. So our composite film showed a very good improvement regarding the water vapor transmission rate when we were comparing with the reference cellulose. Even at such a high relative humidity condition, 80% relative humidity, we could get much more better barrier properties in comparison with nanocellulose. But more interestingly, we could still keep the excellent oxygen barrier properties of these films, and even at such a high relative humidity, we got much more better oxygen barrier property. And after that, because of having the lignin, we could achieve excellent barrier property against UV light and oxidation. And these are also can be beneficial for the packaging applications. So then we wanted to answer this question that by having such an approach, can we still keep the excellent cellulose natural biodegradability? So we started to study the end life of these materials when they exposed in an aquatic environments. So when we talk about the biodegradability, we need to have a multidimensional approach. For instance, we need to clarify if they are biodegradable. Is it home composting, industrial composting, fresh water, and also how much temperature we need to have. Do we need to have an elevated temperature, or room temperature could be also useful? And more importantly, we need to clarify the time frame of our biodegradability. So sometimes the material can be biodegradable in 2 years, but sometimes in 2 weeks. Those are also quite important. And we need to follow up standard references. So in our case, we studied the biodegradability at freshwater and natural seawater. Here you can see our experimental protocol where we got the freshwater consisting of a lot of microorganisms from the wastewater treatment at North Carolina State, and also we got the natural seawater. We just went to the beach and got some water. And we put our samples there and followed the standard references to study the biodegradability. So, as you probably know, when a material degrades, it converts into carbon dioxide, water, some salts, or some mineral bioproduct compounds. And these reactions can happen at the presence of oxygen. So, in order to understand the biodegradability, we can monitor the consumption of oxygen or production of carbon dioxide. And here you can see some of our results, where we first check the biodegradability of our individual components, and as expected, the lignin didn't degrade at such a day, like 42 days where we have, and the polycaprolactone was moderately degradable, around 65%, and cellulose was fully biodegradable. And in the right figure, in a blue line, we had our real sample that we could get around 80% biodegradation just only by 42 days. But more interestingly, where we just compare one sample that we didn't have lignin, just cellulose and polycaprolactone, we could reach a full biodegradation. In spite of, in this figure, you can see that the polycaprolactone is not able to fully degrade it at this time. So, meaning that cellulose somehow is helping for facilitating the biodegradability of this polyester. The reason would be that the cellulose has a high ability to get water and swelling, and we may improve somehow the pore structure of material. So there are more space for microbes and water to eat our sample. After that, we studied the change of morphology of our sample, and as you can see here from the top view of the scanning electron microscopy images, just after around 12 days, we had a clear sign of phase separation or fiber delamination, another sign that the microbes are eating our materials. And also in the down image, you can see that in 12 days, when we were checking the cross-section of our sample, we didn't have this fibrillar structure network. Instead, we had some cluster of the lignin nanoparticles that they were not able to be degraded. Moreover, we studied the change of structural materials over time, and we could see that those microorganisms had utilized the nanocellulose as a source of carbon. So after that, we wanted to somehow evaluate the scalability of our product when we go to the larger scale. Since these materials were made at lab, we did the process simulation, and the life cycle assessment was done in a cradle-to-gate scale, meaning that we consider everything from extraction of raw materials until the material production, but we skip their end life. And also, we chose 100 meters square of this composite film as a functional unit, and we compared our results with a commercial low-density polyethylene film. And this experiment was followed up by a standard ISO 14040. So we got very interesting result that in spite of having bio-based materials, our sample still showed higher potential for the global warming potential when we compare it with a commercial LDPE film, for instance. That can be somehow expected since the LDPE has very well-established technology. But after that, when we were doing the hotspot analysis, we found that the energy-intensive process for this CNF was one of the main reasons. And also, by changing the source of electricity, we may improve that one. But I would like to mention that if we consider the end life of materials, that LDPE still provides a microplastic. So these results can be changed somehow. But anyhow, it's important to consider that we need a further optimization of bio-based materials to fully understand and fully ensure the sustainability. So as a concluding remarks, by using the interfacial design, we could produce a multifunctional cellulosic materials without using excessive chemicals. And also, in somehow, we could say that a trade-off between technical performance and eco-friendliness may not be always necessary. And as a final message, I would like to highlight that by harnessing the inherent natural property of lignocellulose in a sustainable way, we can go forward toward a more sustainable future. And at the end, I would like to appreciate the support of my supervisor, Professor Monica Usteberry, and also Professor Natalie Lavoine and Richard Venditti, that they were hosting my 6-month visit at NC State University, and all of funding organizations like Finnish Natural Resource Research Foundation, and the Finnish Forest Product Association. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Erfan. Do we have questions in the audience? Yes, Tekla.
Hey, thank you, Erfan, for very thorough presentation. And you showed that there was around 80% degraded on your biocomposite film. And you were also talking about these microplastic emissions when it comes to the synthetic plastic materials and comparing of those. And I would like to really ask what is really the 20% left, and can that be actually also a source for some microparticle emissions? And maybe a little bit of follow-up question, that do we have ways to quantify those? Do these standardized methods, do they actually quantify these leftovers?
Yes, thanks. Very interesting question. So I would say that the remaining 20%, some of them are related to the lignin nanoparticles that they were left, but some of them could be still related to our materials, because the thing is that our material had a hydrophobic characteristic and we had a strong interface, and that could act as a barrier for the water penetration somehow, but still we could get a very good level of biodegradation. But that's very important that we can follow up a study about the remaining materials to make sure that all of those remaining lignin can be harmful for our environment or not. This is the question that we don't know the answer, but if I want to just highlight something, some of literature has shown that those lignin nanoparticles regarding the toxicity on the marine has much more better effect when we compare them with some metallic particles, right? But still much further investigation is definitely needed. And this could be also very important because somehow, let's say we have 80% biodegradability and the remaining 20% may be very harmful. But somehow we have 60%, but the remaining is fine, So it's very important research that we really need to dig it up. Yes.
Thank you. What about next steps, and how do you see this? I mean, very interesting results. So do you see the path to commercialization here?
Yeah, we are very interested to have that kind of opportunity to test our system in some larger facility. Yes, but yeah.
Very good. Okay, thank you so much, Erfan. And let's give a big hand.